I'm very excited to introduce our special guest for the evening, Jeremy D. Behar, the founder and CEO of Canadian Dental Services. Jeremy possesses a strong entrepreneurial spirit, company building insight, and superior technical knowledge of the dental business, having spent over 20 years leading change and improvement in the dental industry in both Canada and the United States. Canadian Dental Services is a dental company dedicated to partnering with dentists across Canada to drive professional improvement, increase clinical excellence, enhance the patient experience, and improve practice performance. So all good things I'm sure we're all excited to learn a little bit more about. So welcome, Jeremy.
Chris, thank you. I appreciate the intro.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us. We've got a good group here, and we're excited to learn more. So I'm just going to ask Jeremy some questions, and we'll roll right into it. So starting off very broadly, can you speak to what you see going on in the dental industry within Canada here in early 2022?
Chris, this question I could probably unpack and deliver to you over the next 2 hours. I know we don't have that much time in this program. And when you asked me, when you put this as one of the questions on the question list, for me, it was less about, just kind of answering it and more about, who is the audience, the target audience on this program, and, what are the kind of things that people want to understand in order to fit into and participate in the dental industry in whatever way that they are. So again, whether we have doctors on the call or industry support people, right? Whether it's professional services, labs, supply, practice sales, whatever it is. I think at a high level, what we are in the midst of right now for those that participate in the dental industry is probably the single biggest chapter of change that we've seen in the dental industry, certainly in my lifetime. And I stepped into this industry almost 25 years ago. Now, and through my time at Cirrus Consulting Group and then at CDS, the dental industry's change for the first probably 20 years of my career was what I considered to be really externally driven change. So it was, change as the business got more complex from a number of different external perspectives, real estate, purchasing. I like to look at the dental industry and say, 20 or 30 years ago, when I got into the industry, I met lots of and interacted with lots of dentists who, I'm not saying running the business was easy then, but it was a hell of a lot easier and less complex and less risky than it was today. I use this sort of the analogy or the example. 25 years ago, a dentist, 9 out of 10 decisions that they made over the course of a year could have been bad decisions or wrong decisions or decisions that could have been sort of improved on or made better. And yet at the end of the year, even throughout some sort of mediocre decision making within the business, dentists did okay, right? They treated patients, they cared about their patients, they managed their staff, they sort of got through their sort of from point A to point B over the course of a January to February year in fairly good shape. And that became kind of the reputation in the dental industry that it's just, once you get in, you're good to go for life. And I think that has evolved and changed somewhat significantly over the last 25 years, specifically, obviously, over the last 2 or 3. But I've seen a real gradual change in increased complexity, increased risk, increased cost pressures in the dental industry for quite a while now. And now, all of a sudden, I think, like in most industries, what COVID did is it really hit the industry like a tsunami. I don't think that any person in our industry, had you asked them in 2019, would we ever go and mass shut down our entire industry? And of course, this goes for non-dental as well. But in the dental industry, in the frontline healthcare space, I think the answer would have been, never. It's impossible. It can't happen. And yet it did happen. And we went through it and we lived through it. And I think that what that has done now is hopefully positioned people in the dental industry, and specifically I'm speaking to the individual doctors and dentists, more so than DSOs, more so than us, than professionals on the periphery, that it is at the minimum got doctors and dentists thinking about the things they're going to need to know and understand and get better at to be successful, not even more successful, but to actually just preserve their business and their existing success over the next 5 or 10 years as the world becomes more complex. And so, really, I think beyond 2022, I can't tell you, I have no idea. I think that the fundamentals of any business, which may or may not have been paid attention to in dentistry for 20 or 30 or 40 years now, are something that dental practices in North America cannot afford to not pay attention to any longer. These are things that we must focus on going forward. There's more dental offices opening up every day. We didn't really see the closures that some predicted right at the front end of COVID. Thankfully, thank God for that. But it's a increasingly larger number of people going after a fairly sort of stagnant and existing market share. And I think this is where dentists are going to have to increasingly focus on doing a little bit better tomorrow than they did yesterday or last week or last month in a whole bunch of different aspects of their business.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for that sort of broad positioning there. Now that we see hints of most pandemic restrictions winding down, I'm always sort of fingers crossed and knocking on wood when I say something like that. What do dental offices and practitioners need to be on the lookout for, and what can they do to come out of the pandemic stronger than when it started?
Yeah, again, sort of very broad questions, but when I look in our own business and I look at the things that we are focused on, I think it's 2 or 3 things, Chris. First of all, I think that ultimately we have to remind ourselves every day in the dental business that we are frontline customer service facing. We are patient facing, customer service focused businesses, and I think some dental practices do an exceptional job of that. And sadly, I think many dental practices don't. They open up every day and they do business for themselves. They don't do business for their customers or their patients. And I think number one is, I think going forward, there has to be an increased emphasis on the end customer, on the patient experience. It's funny, when I sit down with our doctors and I talk to doctors that I've known across Canada and the US for years and years and years now, I try not to be offensive when I say to them that it almost doesn't matter how good a dentist you are, because at the end of the day, the patient really has no clue, for the most part, about the difference between a good filling and a bad filling. What they do know, and they're experts at as consumers every day, is when they came in, what was their check-in experience like? How long did they have to wait? How were they treated? And how much pain did they feel or not feel through the process? When they get back in their car, those are the things that drive their decision making as to whether or not they will continue to be a sticky patient of that practice or not. And I think reimagining, as we are doing every day, the patient experience from end to end, I think is something that as an industry, we haven't done a wonderful job of over the past 20 or 30 or 40 years. And that needs to change, I think, on a go-forward basis coming out of the pandemic. It's exacerbated by the fact that I think people are crankier these days all across the world. I mean, we're all tired of COVID. We're all tired of restrictions. We're all tired of thinking about the things that have been taken away from us. And we have just a little bit less patience as consumers when we go out into the world and we do things. And that includes going to a dental office. And so I think, to me, the number one thing is focusing on the patient, focusing on the customer. And I would say number two is just managing expenses even more carefully than was done prior to COVID, doing better with suppliers, doing better with landlords, doing better with just with the people around you. It doesn't mean going and trying to make life, the partnership with them, painful, but pick partners well, right? Pick people that you can have a long-term relationship with as a dentist, whether it's a lab, whether it's a professional service provider, whether it's a supply representative, whatever it is, people that you trust, and surround yourself with them. And really in dentistry, it's a small core group of people, because those are the people that ideally are going to help a dentist or a team, deliver on patient care, deliver on high quality products, if those are the things that they want to do. And I think everyone needs to be competing or focusing on those things. and doing it in a way where it's a small community, it's a small industry. There's a lot of good people out there, and then there's a lot of people out there that as a dentist you probably don't want to spend a lot of time with, and that's probably like every industry. And so I think those would be the two things for me: is focus on the patient, and number two is surround yourself with a great small group of people and rely on them and trust them and reach out to them and help them, even though they're selling things to you. Help them in return by just engaging in a good two-way relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you walk through sort of client experience and patient experience, and see the similarities between the accounting industry and client service is so important for us here at Bateman McKay. And I think the pain involved in dentistry versus accounting is a little bit different, but trying to sort of reduce those pain points and make that experience great is just as important here. So that's great to hear. Can you speak specifically to the state of sort of mergers and acquisitions within the industry, and how practitioners can properly plan for an eventual sale, other than partnering with a great proactive firm like Bateman McKay?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm not gonna this is not specifically for you, for Vinay, for the amazing people that I know at Bateman McKay, but I will say this. It's remarkable to me, Chris, to this day, after 25 years for the first 20 years of my career, I was a professional service provider to the dental industry before starting a DSO 5.5 years ago. And it's amazing to me, despite the feeding frenzy that's going on across North America, specifically driven by DSOs and institutional capital, that is adding fuel to this exit kind of exercise that's happening now in Canada and the US. It's remarkable to me to this day how many dentists are ill prepared to start to make their way down the path of, I'm getting closer, I'm getting ready, I'm starting to think about exit, I'm talking with my family, I'm talking with my accountant, I'm trying to kind of shore everything up for what turns out to be, for most dentists, the single biggest financial event of their life. And again, it's remarkable to me. I remember this shocked me 25 years ago when I got into dentistry, and it shocks me today how few dentists really plan years in advance. And I'm not talking about, I know that in 4 years and 6 months and 3 weeks and 1 day, I'm going to sell my practice. But generally speaking, in accordance with a life plan and an estate plan and health and all that other stuff, how few people are really properly prepared to start engaging in the process. And so what I mean by that is, it's not only, again, to your point, meeting with people, accountants, advisors, et cetera, that can help prepare you for that process, whether it's structuring and tax and all the stuff, the complex stuff that goes with that evolves and changes over time. I think it's also, looking inwards and looking at the practice and trying to figure out, when I exit. First of all, there's a couple of paths. I can exit into the arms of a DSO and continue to practice and do somewhat of a hybrid exit. I can exit entirely on a Friday afternoon to a Monday morning and have a broker come in and transition the practice from me to another doctor, which is the sort of historic traditional model. Okay, great. There's no one that's better than the other. And yet I think very few people sort of think to themselves, how do I want to exit when I start getting closer to that point? So do I want to go down the path of partnering with a DSO? Do I want to go down the path of exiting to another doctor? What are the things that I can do inside my office to help maximize the value of my practice and my business, so that when I exit, it isn't a terrible, dilapidated, sort of falling apart, no employment agreements, no sort of formalized vendor relationships type stuff. I'm not suggesting that people go and sign up to do an executive MBA, dentists, in order just to plan and prepare for the exit of their business. But I think, even when I look at some of the names on this call today, there's a lot of really good, smart people that support the dental industry, you guys amongst them. And I just think it really behooves doctors to plan and plan properly, And that's something that I feel like, for 25 years, I've been lecturing about around North America and really sort of begging dentists, when you get to this point, there's so many things that you had to do 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. So the amount of conversations I've had with doctors where I've said, so, hey, thanks for the call. Wonderful that you're ready to sell like this week or next week, but you've got probably a 3-year journey ahead of you because you didn't plan properly. So if you don't have people around you, you go find them. And if you don't know where to find them, just start to pick and poke and find one good one. And that one good one will lead you to a second good one and a third good one. And I just find that because of the size of our industry, it's just a better way to go. And I find that the people who do that, as I've watched exits, thousands of exits over the years, they really come out not only winning increasingly on the financial side, but they win more importantly, I think, on the operational, on the emotional, on the mental, on the retirement side. They end up crossing a bridge that when they get to the other side, sure, they've got money in the bank account, which you're going to get on any transaction, but they're actually happy when they get to the other side and not, angry or sad or regretful or coulda, shoulda, woulda. And I think a lot of that is avoidable just given the sheer number of people who go through this in our industry every year for the past 30 or 40 years or more. So I think, that to me, I think is and should be a big focus.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Shifting gears a little bit here, another COVID sort of related questions. Lots of industries are fighting this battle right now. Have you seen any successful or creative solutions to staffing issues that dentists specifically are seeing right now?
I'm looking for that silver bullet, so I don't know that I have an answer. When you find it, let me know. The answer is yes and no. So, Chris, as a part of our culture at CDS, we're really big and all the time you'll hear in our office 10 times a day that we love to steal and deploy shamelessly. One of the exciting things that drove us to start CDS 5.5 years ago was the fact that we felt like dentistry had existed in a dark cave for far too many decades. And there are other industries out there that are completely different from dentistry, non-healthcare, retail, food service, et cetera, that have all faced a lot of the challenges and problems that we have. They've faced them for decades now, and they have resourced them and figured out how do we solve some of these problems? How do we fix things? And I think, in our business, I can tell you for us, that's one of the ways that we approach a lot of the sort of, heavily entrenched mindset baggage issues that we go to business with every day in dentistry. As it relates specifically to people, one of the things that we're all battling for people. You guys are battling for people in the accounting industry. We are battling severely for people in the dental industry, and that's no different in both Canada and the U.S. In fact, on the south side of the border in the U.S., they're in worse shape than we are right now in Canada, marginally. I think the thing that we came to realize probably about a year ago, as we all started to come to grips with the fact that our people strategies were going to have to get reimagined, was that historically, the dental industry and dental practices and dentists specifically, when a position opens or they need to fill a seat, they hire from within the dental industry pond. And that has been sort of the historic, overwhelming methodology that has been used. So again, whether it's a dentist, a hygienist, a dental assistant, a sterilization technician, an administrative person, an office manager, doesn't matter. When 2 resumes come in, one comes in and that person worked as a teller at a bank for 7 years, and another resume comes in and the person worked at 7 different offices over the last 7 years. Our industry has defaulted historically to hiring the person who worked at 7 dental offices over the past 7 years. Why? Because they probably know the software that we need them to know when they come in, and we don't have to train them over the course of, however many weeks or months. They probably understand a little bit about how the insurance world works. They probably know somewhat how to have a treatment coordinating conversation, et cetera. All true, no question. But those shortcuts have continued to create problems for us in the dental industry. And so 2 things that we have done and some other DSOs have done, and I think I appreciate that in the DSO world, we're maybe a little bit better resourced than the solo practitioner. Number one is on the administrative side. We haven't stopped hiring from the dental industry in admin roles, but because they don't really need specific technical clinical competencies per se and qualifications, degrees, etc. What we do is we go out into the world in manager roles, people manager roles, and in admin roles, and we look for the very best customer service oriented people, period. We look for humble, hungry, and smart. If you've got those three characteristics and you are service oriented, come into our business. We will teach you all that you need to know about dentistry. What we can't teach you is how to treat people well as they come in the office every day. Impossible. We've made that mistake. Too many businesses have made that mistake. So that's what we're doing on the people side to try to overcome challenges on the admin hiring side, and not even just admin, replacement. It's admin hiring to support continued growth. The other part of our sort of people plan over the last year or so has been investing in dental assistant education. So, and I say that we do this as a DSO. I know some other dental DSOs do this, and I know that in this area it is affordable for doctors who pick the right person. Again, humble, hungry, smart, some other core competencies and characteristics that we look for at CDS, and invest in them and give them a part-time job and help put them through DA school in exchange for a commitment to come back. It's a wonderful career. It's a wonderful job. It pays well. Increasingly, I think the dental industry is becoming a better place for dental industry professionals to have a career versus a decade or two ago. And so, again, it's picking the right people and investing in them. And then I think, again, as I started off this answer with, and looking outside of our own backyard into other industries that have figured out how to do this well, and steal and deploy. I'll give you an example. We have, over the last few months, we have brought people into our clinics across Canada from the hotel management and hospitality business. That industry has been decimated, far worse than anything we've experienced in dentistry. And yet we knew that, going out to that industry and finding people who've been in organizations large and small, where managing that front desk when 7 people all of a sudden show up and want to check in at the same time, if you can manage that well, you can manage up the front desk of almost any dental practice well. And so it's about taking those characteristics, finding those people, weeding them sort of through to find the best ones, and then using those people to help us create, as I said in my first answer to you, the very best patient experience that we possibly can.
Yeah, great. It's great to hear those sort of creative solutions and looking sort of outside your immediate sphere there. That's fantastic. I've got one more question here for Jeremy, and we've got some questions that came in from the registration process. But just a reminder, if you have any questions or comments or anything, you should have access to the Teams chat, and I'll see them there. If not, you should all have received an email from me today, and you can respond to that with your questions, and I can answer them there as well. Okay, last question for this section. What are 2 to 3 actionable takeaways that our dental attendees here today can walk away with to strengthen their business for 2022?
Yeah, Chris, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna use this question to just kind of sum up and repeat a little bit of a culmination of my prior answers. I can answer this question, I think, very, very quickly. Number one, I think, is plan. And again, whether it's a 30-year-old doctor, 40-year-old doctor, 70-year-old doctor, doesn't matter. I think just always look ahead as far down the road as you possibly can and plan. I think number 2 is, I cannot emphasize enough, surround yourself with smart people. And I'm not talking necessarily about showing up at study club dinners if we start getting back into those. Once a month, once every 3 months to hear a speaker, pick up some CE points, etc. I'm not referring to other dentists. Dentists are fairly good in our industry at exposing themselves to clinical learning and clinical mentorship. Not so good at exposing themselves to more business and planning expertise, and quite frankly, technical expertise, right? If you work with a good lab, spend time with that lab, develop a relationship. They've got expertise in parts of your business that you will never become an expert in. And yet, if you ultimately care about the patient experience and outcomes in the end, you need a good lab partner. And then I think lastly is my emphasis on the patient experience. I honestly believe that it comes down to one thing. The next he or she who wins the next 5 or 10 years in the dental industry are the ones that have figured out how to nail down a relentlessly repeatable, positive patient experience and outcome through their doors. It doesn't just happen anymore. It doesn't happen on its own. You know, there's too many obstacles, too many forms, too many waivers, too many questions, too many what ifs. There's too much going on, and then you get there, and everybody looks like an alien from Star Wars because we're all PP'd up and we've got our masks on and we've got everything on. I really think that those dentists that focus on what's it like to do business with them, right? Have somebody take them through an exercise of what's it like to actually shop for care in your clinic. Is it a good experience or is it not a great experience? And I think those that invest and spend time in really sort of thinking about and tooling those parts of their business are the ones ultimately who are going to be just fine over the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I love that term, relentlessly repeatable. That's I'm going to steal that one. You know, it's great if you can get it on your best days and on Fridays and when everything's going well, but you got to be able to get it every single time because you can't sort of have that 50-50 hit miss. I like that, relentlessly repeatable. Thanks for that, Jeremy. So again, I'll do a final call out for questions if there's any out there. We've got these next 3 coming up from the registration questions here. So what trends are we seeing with dentists trying to do more in-house versus the traditional model of referring out to specialist offices like oral surgery or implants or endodontists?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things going on right now. So I think and Canada versus US. So the dawn of the super GP, I think, is something that has started to occur and has been there's been momentum in that regard, more so in the US than in Canada over the last bunch of years. You know, the sort of democratization of ortho, right, where, you know, Invisalign has now made it, you know, through the use of AI and technology, accessible for general dentists to dabble in ortho, right? Has made, you know, where Straumann and advancements in implant technology have made it accessible for general dentists to learn how to get into the implant business. I think that while we are seeing the sort of the rise and the growth of that in Canada, there will absolutely always be a need for specialists, for the endos, for the perios, for the oral surgeons, for the orthos. Nobody does what they do the way they do it. And so when I talk to general dentists about this, I say to myself, you know, let's look at medicine. If your family doctor one day said to you, hey, I'm kind of bored after 15 or 20 years and I'm going to start getting into knee replacements, or I'm going to start getting into, you know, whatever it is, all of us, I think, would sit back and kind of be like, huh? Like, what do you mean? Like, how does that work? And I think while we're while we're continuing to see an increased interest among general dentists in Canada in dabbling into other things that maybe are bigger ticket, maybe are more interesting and exciting after 25 years of the same kind of restorative dentistry. I think the best dentists that I know what to do, and they know what not to do and what to refer out. And I feel like I've seen that for 25 years, and I'm a big believer in that. Having said that, I also believe that insourcing as much as you can ultimately drives more value for the patient. And I'm sort of tying it all back again to that patient experience. So let me give you an example. Took one of my kids a couple weeks ago to his general dentist, and he needs to have his wisdom teeth extracted. And we are going to get sent to an oral surgeon's office to have that work done. And when you think about it, when your general dentist then refers you out for transactional work to another dental office, it's a bit nerve-wracking. It's uncomfortable, right? From the minute you pull your car into a new building and you're walking through a new hall and you're checking in at a new desk and whatever it is that you're doing, I think the opportunity for us in dentistry in Canada is to reimagine the way that we treat patients and what it feels like to be on the opposite end of that, and possibly drive a trend to bring some of that into our general dentistry offices. Now that means investment, and that's something that not all dentists want to do. So that means having an extra operatory that's maybe a little bit bigger and maybe differently equipped in order to bring in that specialist 1 day a week or 1 day a month or whatever it is. But what you're ultimately doing is investing again in that relentlessly repeatable patient experience. Whether you're coming in here for a 6-month cleaning, whether you're coming in here to have a cavity fixed, whether you're coming in to have a crown placed, or whether you're coming in to have some endo work done or implant work or whatever it is through the hands of a specialist, we take care of everything that you need in this office, and we do it well, and we do it with the right people, and we do it with the support of the right equipment and technology and materials. And I think, to me, I see that as not the only, but one of the ways of winning in the future with patients. Because ultimately, for the most part, I think they'll go to any specialist that you send them to historically. I think that's kind of changing now a little bit over time, where geography is starting to matter more to a patient than 20 years ago, right? They went where you sent them to go, right? Wherever it was. It could have been an hour away, that's where they went. And now, more general dentistry offices are hearing about, well, the subway line and the traffic, and I'm not sure, and my friend recommended this person where they had that done. I think the easiest thing to do is where possible, bring it in and really engineer that end-to-end experience for the patient as much as possible.
Yeah. Again, so much comes back to the relationship and building that and strengthening that. Next up here, can you speak to current valuations in the dental industry?
No. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Sure, I'd be happy to. Look, values have continued to increase across Canada. The dynamics of specifically, I think, of institutional capital pouring into Canada to fuel sort of large M&A activity, large scale M&A activity, traditionally an industry like ours, is going to kind of disrupt that supply demand curve somewhat. And so valuations have continued to go up. Some of my colleagues in the DSO space have, for a number of different reasons, continue to really put a huge amount of emphasis on the overall growth of their businesses through the sort of day-to-day, week-to-week absorption and integration of practices across Canada that has driven multiples up. That's not necessarily the case as much or all the time when it's a practice selling on a one-to-one basis through, say, a broker or whatever it is. Amazingly, I weekly get calls from doctors who, before they've told me their name, ask me, what multiple do we pay? And again, it's amazing to me how, I go back to an earlier comment, how so many doctors today are getting caught up in asking the wrong questions on the front end of this type of conversation. I say to a doctor, it would be like you going on a date with someone for the very first time, and before they even open the door to pick you up, they roll down the window and the first question they ask you is, how much money is in your bank account? I don't know your name, but that's what I want to know. And so I don't find it offensive. I find it a little bit silly, only because the conversation that I believe doctors should be having is first figuring out, do I want to partner with a DSO, an institutional partner, and commit and really partner and stay on board and work together, right? Because that's what it is. Or do I really not want to go down that path, and am I more suited to selling between a Friday and a Monday and I'm out and that's it, right? I sit my staff down on a Friday morning, I introduce the buyer, right? We concluded the deal 2 days prior. I tell them that today's my last day, meet Dr. So-and-so. I won't be here on Monday. Good luck with everything, and hope you all have a nice life. I think that's the first sort of set of thinking and questioning that people need to go through. The second thing I think people need to go through, if let's just say it's the DSO path, is, okay, that's great. What kind of DSO? What's important to you? If you're committing for 3, 5, 7, 8 years, whatever it is, to work with a company that you're now selling your business to, dentistry or otherwise, don't you think it makes sense to spend a little bit of time getting to know them, getting to know who they are, getting to know the people that you would be working with, reporting to, being supported by, the resources available to you, the education available to you, the mentorship available to you, the core values that either align with yours or not. To me, those are the kinds of things, when I look back at the last 10 years, both in terms of our business and other DSOs, that's where I say, when those conversations happened well, you get a tremendous alignment of people working together ultimately for the good of the patient. When there is a misalignment up front because the wrong things get focused on too soon, that is where I have seen the world's biggest car crashes happen in dentistry, where people got married to each other for the wrong reasons. And the problem is divorce is not really possible once these types of things occur. And so, again, I really just emphasize, spend time, get to know people, right? Get to know the people that you're looking to partner with, if that's what you're doing. And if you have no interest in changing your ways, partnering with people, engaging in those types of conversations, then probably the right path, and it's not a wrong or right, but the right path, I think, for that type of doctor is the traditional model. Work until your last day of work, and that's it, and then sell the keys to the office and never look back. And if you really think through it and you surround yourself with the right people and you plan through it well, don't worry about multiples. Don't worry about all the things that are getting thrown around today, because whatever it is, you're going to make a boatload of money and you're going to be happy on the other end of it. And I just think, seeing it through the eyes of leading a DSO and seeing it for 20 plus years prior to leading a DSO, that to me was always kind of the one thing. It was the one common element that explained why good deals happen and why bad deals happen. And it was a common thread through all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Last crowdsource question here. Is there growth in dental with the current climate?
Yes. I'm not sure exactly what kind of growth. I think that the industry has a tremendously exciting future ahead of it, partly because, and I say this with respect to all of us on this call and those that are in the dental industry, whether they're clinicians or otherwise, we have an opportunity to rewire and change the way that Canadians shop for care and the way that care is delivered across Canada. There's a tremendous amount of growth available. Sadly, I think over the next 5 years, an increasing number of dentists are going to have a increasingly difficult time running a successful, healthy, happy, profitable small business. And I think what will happen when that happens is, and we're seeing it already, market share will get thrown up in the air, and it will be up for grabs for those that give those patients a reason to come to their office and never leave. And I think there is tremendous growth available. I do think it's going to be, to some extent, at the expense of some existing clinics in the world today. But I also, you can look sort of macro at the stats in Canada. I mean, Canada has one of the highest upticks of dentistry and dental care in the developed world. More Canadians go see their dentist every year. More Canadians as a percentage of our population have access to some type of third-party insurance than many or most other OECD countries around the world. And so a very high dental IQ in Canada. And I think that is our opportunity. Doesn't mean that the educating is done, because we need to continue to educate. However, we need to, I think, I'm going to tie it back. It's like my theme for the night: tie it back to the patient, tie it back to service, tie it back to communication, tie it back to technology. How easy is it to do business with your dentist or any dentist? Because if it isn't, there's about 25 other dentists within a stone's throw or a 9-iron of that dental practice in most places in Canada that patients have a choice to switch to. So I think, to me, that's the most important.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. This was very insightful. I know I learned a lot. I hope our audience did as well. We covered a lot of ground and a lot of sort of big topics, and I think you provided some great information for all of them. That's all I've got. Jeremy, I'll sort of toss it up to you. Again, I know you covered a lot and you did everything great. If you've got sort of a last word or a sign off, and if not, because you've been talking straight for the past 45 minutes, that's okay too. And then I'll wrap up when you're done.
Yeah, I don't really, Chris. I would just say two things. Number one is I'd be more than happy to connect offline with anyone who wants to chat further or just engage in a meaningful conversation about the industry. Again, like I said to you, I've been invested in it for 25 years now, and I both love and get exceptionally aggravated by this industry at the same time. I think it's probably all of our industries, but I do think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and I'd be happy to connect offline. And then lastly, I think just thanks to you and Vinay and the entire team at Bateman McKay. I will say, I've known you guys for a super long time. Vinay and I have known each other for, I think, at least 15 years now. And I think, back to that comment about surround yourself with the right people. I will just say that I remember 22 or 23 years ago now, I was at a dental conference in the US, and there was a gentleman that was lecturing to a group of young dentists that had just graduated, and I was sitting at the back of the room, and this was early on in my sort of dental career. And I remember there was one thing that this lecturer urged these young dentists, if they remember nothing else, when they leave and they go out into the world and they start to flap their wings and open their practice or buy a practice or whatever, the one thing I remember that he said is, go out and find a small group of people that you can trust and learn from throughout the course of your career, that have seen the roadblocks, the telephone poles, the pitfalls before they hit your car, that can warn you, that can tell you about them and save you a hell of a lot of aggravation and grief throughout your career. And I have stolen and deployed that shamelessly throughout the past almost 25 years of my career, because not only do I believe it, but I tell people that every time I talk to or lecture with dentists or meet with them, because I believe that that's the case. And I think with you guys at Bateman McKay, undoubtedly and unquestionably, you guys fall into the category of the good guys and people that I think dentists really should be surrounding themselves with and getting as much time with as possible to understand how to achieve the most predictable outcome in their work, their professional lives and their personal lives. And I'm a big believer in that. So thank you guys for inviting me to do this with you tonight. And it's been a pleasure as always. And I look forward to hearing from anyone that has questions or wants to chat further.
Great. Thank you so much for the kind words, Jeremy. I will be sure to include Jeremy's contact info so you can connect with him directly in a follow-up email after the session. So if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly, and again, I'll provide Jeremy's info as well. Thanks to everyone who was able to join us tonight. I hope you got a lot of value of it. I know I sure did, and I'm eternally grateful to Jeremy for this. My final sort of sign off here, it is tax season. Get your stuff in, whether you work with Bateman McKay or somebody else. Give your accountant a hug. It's the time of year when they need it, and I think that's okay now. So happy March, and thanks again for joining, everybody. Take care.